Hi, I'm Mark Martinez, and this is part 2 of my Zhiyun Crane 3 Lab and Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K setup. So I am using the Sigma 18 to 35 millimeter zoom lens going through a Metabones speed booster. If you're planning on using a zoom lens with the focus and zoom motors by Zhiyun that go with the Crane 3, you're going to have balancing issues because it's going to be front heavy, and there's no way to compensate. Even if you set your camera as far back on the plate as possible, it's still front heavy. One second. Okay, I'm going to record some close-ups for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. Give me just a second here. So in order to get it to balance, I added a Rodelink receiver, and I have it mounted on to the cage here to give it a little bit more weight on the back, right? And then I also have the Samsung T5, the 500 gigabyte SSD, also attached to give it a little bit more weight too, towards the back, even though it's kind of like just off center. You can see that, and it doesn't really weigh a lot, so it wasn't enough to give it that much weight. Because of the way it's set up here, that was the only mounting place I could find on the cage that would work with it. It made it heavy this way. No matter how far back on I pushed in the camera on the arm to compensate, it was still heavy on the left. So in order to compensate for that weight, I added this weight here, which I happen to have with my Ronin MX setup, but I'm going to leave a link for you guys to where I got this from. Now, what's interesting is that Zhiyun provides a 1/4 inch threaded hole to be able to, to mount, I would imagine, a counterweight, because this worked perfectly. And so now we're balanced, right? So now we're balanced, we're good to go, and that's the setup in order to get a zoom lens to balance with the focus and zoom motors. When you first turn on the gimbal with the motors attached, it's going to want to update the firmware. And Zhiyun and I would actually highly recommend that you update them one at a time, starting with the focus motor. The focus motor they call the light, right? It's the light, and these motors are sold separately, and so is the phone holder. Just an FYI. But the focus motor is called the light, and it goes by a number CMF-03. Okay, and the zoom motor is called the max, and that is CMF-04 numbers, and those are printed on the motors themselves so that you know which is which, because the zoom motor is programmed to the rocker on the gimbal handle, right? And the focus motor is programmed to the focus wheel. So when you're updating the firmware, you want to make sure that you do, I would recommend doing the focus motor first, right? And then so make sure that the zoom motor is not connected, right? Just turn on the gimbal. Okay. Go down to focus, and then light, and then hit it again. And it will update, and do the same for the max. So once your motors are updated to the latest firmware, your lens is installed, your gears are lined up, everything is set up, you have it balanced, you're going to want to set your A and B stops on your zoom motor, because if you don't, you're going to run into that. So that's all the way wide, and if we zoom in, you're going to hit those hard stops, and it's going to make that nasty gear grinding sound. So I highly recommend that you set your A and B points, and that is really easy to do. So you want to open up to your widest position on your lens, right, to your widest zoom position on your lens, and you'll hear the gear starting to grind. You definitely don't want that. So once you're in your widest position, back up just a tad bit, right, and then make sure that you're not going to hit that hard stop, and you're going to set your A and B points. So in the menu, hit the down button and scroll down to the rocker, hit the right button, scroll down to AB point, hit the right button, and you have your A, B, and clear. Okay, so let's set that wide point on the lens as our A point. Okay, and hit the right button and it'll set it, right? Back on your zoom rocker, zoom in to your tightest position on the lens, right? You hear it grind, back up a little bit, and then so you can get as close to it as possible without hitting that hard stop. And back on your menu, scroll down to the B, stop, and then hit the right button and it will set it. That check means that it was set. So now when you zoom in and out, you're not hitting that hard stop and grinding those gears. You've engaged your A and B points on the rocker to only operate within those points, right? And that'll keep you from grinding those gears. So I actually went out and shot a client. I actually used the gimbal for 100% of the shots. A young girl, she was dancing, and I was just covering her routine. Okay, so I covered that 100% with the gimbal. I put it to the test. I used all of the functionality, including the vortex feature, which is that 360 roll feature, and all of the other features that are included with this gimbal. Now, I know some of you wanted to see the ZY Play app, but I'll tell you right now, I didn't use it. I haven't used it. The cool thing about it is the wireless video transmission, but to be honest, there is a latency. That latency, I timed it, is about half a second off. Okay, and that half a second is crucial when you're focusing. So, it's not quite there yet. I think it's really cool. The image transmission is definitely cool. You can frame your shots, but in terms of focusing, it's not going to help you much. But you don't need the app. I will tell you right now that I did that whole shoot without the app, and all of the functionality on the gimbal is accessible through the buttons. Once you learn what those buttons are, which is not difficult to do, it just takes a little bit of practice, then you're good to go. Everything is tactile. I hope you guys see how you can actually use the gimbal in a real world situation. I put it to the test. I mean, for my purposes, it works excellent. I am 100% happy with it in terms of the gimbal itself, the ergonomics of it. As you can see, I was back and forth following this girl. I was out of breath, but my back never hurt. I never strained it because of the positioning of the handle for doing any type of field work out there where it requires you to move around and get those shots. It works great, and I would not be able to get those shots if I had a vest and an arm, or even if I had that fish hook thing, whatever you call it, right? Like, there's just no way that I'd be able to be as mobile as I need to be, it just works for me. One other thing I'd like to cover before I wrap up is the fact that there is no camera control. There's more buttons on here that you can use to control, the aperture, the ISO, different functions within the camera. Having it, at your fingertips is definitely useful, but we don't have that with the Pocket 4K, and that's not on Zhiyun's end. It's on Blackmagic's end. There's just no camera control for the 4K. Here's the thing. Honestly, you don't need any type of wired camera control. There's an app that I use called the Bluetooth Plus. You can look it up on the Apple Store. I don't know if they have an app for like a Samsung, but it's called the Bluetooth Plus, and it gives you control of not just the start and stop, but of your ISO, your shutter speed, your white balance, and the naming of your scenes. So it's a very useful app, and it's wireless. It uses Bluetooth, and now that, if you put it on the phone holder here, now that is useful. You don't need camera control. You can do it all through Bluetooth, and it works flawlessly. So I hope you got something out of this. I really hope that I was able to help you, make an informed decision if you're looking to purchase this gear. And also, hopefully, if you do have the gear and you need help setting it up, maybe these tips will help you. Again, I am not sponsored by any of these companies. I am doing it, as a filmmaker, just wanting to pay it forward, sharing with you what my experiences have been with this gear so far. So yeah, I hope this information was useful, and I will see you when I see you. Take care.